He doesn't care what he eats for dinner. He doesn't care what, I pack for his lunch. He doesn't care about all this stuff. He doesn't care about money and stuff. I'm the particular one, but I'm not as bad as Sally. But somebody has to be in the relationship. Somebody has to care about the details, and somebody has to be like, cool, you take care of that.
I'll have a number 3.
I'd like the chef salad, please, with the oil and vinegar on the side and the apple pie a la mode. I'd like the pie heated, and I don't want the ice cream on top. I want it on the side, and I'd like strawberry instead of vanilla if you have it. If not, then no ice cream, just whipped cream, but only if it's real. If it's out of a can, then nothing.
Thank you so much, Laurel, for joining. So today we're going to talk about the movie When Harry Met Sally.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here with you. We have so much fun watching these movies. And I know they're old movies, but that just shows that there's oldies but goodies out there like we are.
And this movie is still so relevant because it's about relationships.
It is. And that's totally why we watch them again, is because they are so relevant. And relationships are still where they were back then. I mean, we all want to find the love of our life. We're all wondering where it is. We're all always about, trying to figure out who's right for us. And that will happen throughout your whole life. So, we might as well look at it in a fun way.
So let's tell a little bit about this movie. I mean, we start in 1977 when Sally, our lead protagonist, and Harry are going to share a drive from the University of Chicago. They just graduated and they're going to drive to New York City. They don't know each other. Sally is friends with Harry's girlfriend. And so they're going to share that drive because Sally's going to go to journalism school, and Harry's going there to take some sort of job as a political consultant, apparently.
I think so. And so how many hours is that? I don't know, like
probably
15
about 16
hours.
to 20 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long drive. And I live in North Carolina, which is here, and then Chicago and New York are all up here. So it's a long drive for me too. So, and I've gone from Florida all the way to Maine, and that was like a 2-day trip. So if you guys don't know the geography of the United States is huge. And so if you want to drive anywhere, feel free. I know my state itself is like 5 hours, 6 hours just to go across North Carolina.
And my state's small.
I know, right? Yours is like one hour.
Yeah, one hour from the east to the west. It's probably going to take 3 or 4 hours.
Anyway, so she had to spend all this time with this guy she didn't know.
Why don't you tell me the story of your life?
Story of my life?
We've got 18 hours to kill before we hit New York.
The story of my life isn't even going to get us out of Chicago. I mean, nothing's happened to me yet.
And just like in the last movie where she sits next to some guy in the plane and they start talking, this one, she's in a car trapped with him for this many hours and they have to figure out what to say.
It comes down to they end up having all these different conversations, and they stop at a restaurant and they are discussing relationships. Harry, our lead character, basically making the comment that a man and a woman cannot be friends.
Yes, of course, that we could never be friends.
Why not?
What I'm saying is, and this is not a come on in any way, shape, or form, is that men and women can't be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
And she's like, no, I have plenty of men friends. And he's like, no, that's not true. And why does he say that's not true?
Because he says if you're pretty, you can't be friends with a guy because he's always thinking about, getting with you.
Right. But then he also says he also wants, even if you're not pretty, they still are thinking about getting with you.
Yeah, because why not? You're a woman, he's a man, and that's what all men think about, according the male psychology and it's not true. I mean, some guys are more understanding that, a woman is there for other reasons than just to, be with her that way. We're all human beings too. So instantly you say, is this person attractive or not? And instinctually, even before you even talk to them, you could have that estimation in your mind. So as humans, we understand that.
After that conversation, Harry kind of says, oh, you know what? You're really attractive. And she's at first, Sally's like, thank you. But it's really not a matter of opinion. You are really attractive. So she realized that he's hitting on her.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like he's trying not to hit on her, but he's trying to give her a compliment without hitting on her, but they're not sure. Like she's not sure if he isn't, and she's not sure, why he's saying this to her, if he's not going to hit on her. So there's a little bit of mixed communication here.
Yes. And I think through that conversation, like she, for all that rest of the ride to New York, is pretty much thought that her friend's boyfriend has hit on her and basically wanted to get together with her. So they drive there and they still have that discussion that a man and a woman can't be friends. And she says, well, it's really too bad because you were the only person that I knew.
That I knew in New York.
So they go their separate ways, and they, she goes to journalism school, he goes on to his career, and they end up meeting up 5 years later. It's 1982, and they meet at the airport. She is actually saying goodbye to her boyfriend that she has recently
at the time, right?
Dated. Yes, she's dating this guy, Joe. And here comes Harry, and he's looking and looking, they're kind of kissing. So it looks like he's kind of like just like staring at them kissing, but he's actually looking because he recognizes Joe.
Joe, I thought it was you. Harry Burns.
Harry, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I was just walking by and I thought it was you.
But he might also recognize Sally. And he's like, oh, Joe happens to be his neighbor. And he says, hello. And then Joe introduces Sally to Harry. And Sally just pretends that she does not know Harry.
And I think also Harry pretends that he doesn't know Sally, or else he doesn't remember her till later. And then Sally says, oh, thank God he didn't recognize me. I spent the worst trip from, Chicago to New York. And I'm so glad because that was so awkward.
And then he ends up sitting behind her and he's like looking and she's making an order. Cause like, oh, we forgot to mention that she's very particular. She orders a apple pie a la mode, which means that you're going to have some ice cream on the side, but she wants the apple pie heated, but not with the ice cream. She wants strawberry, not chocolate. If there's no strawberry, then no ice cream, but she wants whipped cream, but only if it's real. And if it's not real, then nothing at all. And then the waitress is like, well, you don't want the apple pie. She's like, no, the apple pie, but not any of the rest. So he realizes
she's very, very particular.
She's very particular of how she orders. And she's doing the same thing on the airplane.
No, wait. Here's what I want. Regular tomato juice, fill it up about 3/4, then add a splash of Bloody Mary mix, just a splash, and a little piece of lime, but on the side.
The University of Chicago, right?
Yes.
And that's when I think he kind of like, oh, that's right, that's her. And
on the side girl. She's the on the side girl. Like, so I want everything on the side, or, I want it real. And she's very particular. Yes, exactly.
And he's sitting behind her. And then she mentions to the guy next to her, yeah, we spent like this car ride, And the guy that's sitting next to Sally says, you guys want to switch seats? And Sally's like, no. And then Harry's like, yeah, thank you. So they switch seats and they're talking the whole plane ride.
Yeah. And then they have to talk again because, she has to be polite to him and all that kind of stuff. And then she's still irritated by him because he's still, the opposite of her. She's very particular and he's very whatever. He doesn't care. Like most guys, a lot of guys are like this. My husband's like this. He doesn't care what he eats for dinner. He doesn't care what, I pack for his lunch. He doesn't care about all this stuff. He doesn't care about money and stuff. I'm the particular one, but I'm not as bad as Sally. But somebody has to be in the relationship. Somebody has to care about the details, and somebody has to be like, cool, you take care of that. So if they were together, then, that would be the way that it was. And you just have to deal with people the way they are. So they're talking on the plane. And then what happens after that?
Well, he mentions that she's living with her boyfriend, and he mentions that he's getting married. And she's very surprised with that because she doesn't really see him as the type that would settle down. On the way, as they're walking to like baggage or whatnot, he asked her to dinner, and she says, well, you said a man and a woman can't be friends. And he says, I never said that. And he says, oh, well, actually we can be friends. I'm going to have a little amendment to that rule because we're both in relationships. So now we can be friends. And they said, well, actually we can't be friends because then our significant others wonder why we have to have this other friendship outside and so on. So they end up not getting together for dinner. And they end up not seeing each other for like another, I think it's about 5 years, because Harry is then getting divorced and Sally has broken up with Joe.
That's right. So when do they meet again at that point?
Sally, she's with her good friend Marie at a bookstore, and Marie says, somebody is looking at you from, so basically the section of books on personal growth. Sally and Harry bump into each other at that bookstore and they go and have coffee. They then start to become friends. because they are
There you
both have
go.
broken up from their relationships, and they start to become friends because now they have a commonality. They both are coming out of these relationships. So
Mhm.
then, yeah, they become very
Yeah.
good friends, but they also have this great idea that they will try to get their best friends to date each other.
Exactly. So it's kind of funny when you set up somebody for a blind date, what we call it in America here is a blind date, or set it up by a friend, and you expect that those two people are going to be interested in each other. But what ended up happening?
Marie was really bored with Harry, and Sally, who was being set up with Jess, was really bored. They didn't seem to have a connection. But then all of a sudden,
Marie says restaurants are to people in the 80s what theater were to people in the 60s. I read that in a magazine. And then Jess says, I wrote that. And all of a sudden, they have a connection.
Get out of here.
No, I did. I wrote that.
I've never quoted anything from a magazine in my life. That's amazing. Don't you think that's amazing? And you wrote it?
And then they start talking. So you don't know what you're going to, come across when you meet somebody. You don't know what connection you're going to have. It could be as simple as a quote from a magazine. It could be as simple as something that you did 20 years ago. But if you have a connection, you can start talking and develop something from there. It's really interesting how life works, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And so that evening, as they're leaving the restaurant, Marie pulls aside Sally and she said, are you going to date Jess? Because if you're not, I'd kind of like to call him up and have dinner. And she's like, that's fine, but don't do it tonight because Harry's really, he's really not feeling well. And, he's kind of not.
Yeah, he's
been
in a
the best.
bad place.
He's in a bad place. Please don't do that. And the same thing happens with Jess. Jess pulls Harry aside and says the same thing. And then all of a sudden, Marie says, oh, you know what? I'm tired. I'm going to take a taxi. And Jess says, I'll join you. And they both leave in the taxi together.
And the interesting thing is, you see how much Harry and Sally care about each other from that. Oh, don't hurt my friend. And they're both like worried about that, but they really are because they like each other and they just don't want to admit it because they've had so much history where things didn't work out. And so the story continues from there.
We then see that Jess and Marie are moving in together. And right before they're moving in together, there's a scene where Harry and Sally are actually trying to buy something, a housewarming gift. And they're singing the song. They're actually singing a karaoke song, Surrey with a Fringe on Top from Oklahoma. And they're singing together. And then all of a sudden it's just Sally singing. And I think Harry sings a song like My Eyes Popped. And all of a sudden he sees Helen. And who's Helen?
Right.
Like, I don't know if we
His
mentioned.
ex.
His
Yeah.
ex.
So Helen is the one he married.
Yes.
And they've divorced and he hasn't seen her since the divorce. And she's with this new guy.
The guy that
And
she
he's
left
totally
Harry
like,
for.
right. So he's just taken aback. He's like, oh my gosh. He acts okay in her presence, but afterwards he's just heartbroken. Sally has to console him.
And so she consoles him. And then after, they go to Jess and Marie's to deliver their nice housewarming gift. And Marie and Jess are having a little bit of a disagreement over this god awful wagon wheel coffee table that Jess wants to have in their new place. And Marie doesn't
Right.
want it. So she asks Sally and she's like, no. And then Jess asks Harry and he's like, yeah, it's nice. And then all of a sudden Harry starts telling them,
Right now, everything is great. Everything is happy. Everyone is happy. Everyone is in love. And that's wonderful. But you got to know that sooner or later, you're going to be screaming at each other about who's going to get this dish. And then they realize, oh, he's still worried about what's, in his head about his ex and all that kind of stuff, because he has this very cynical attitude.
he does.
You're in love right now, but just think down the line, it's what's going to happen to me, could happen to you, and you're going to fight over your stuff.
This stupid wagon wheel Roy Rogers garage sale coffee table.
He wanted to show his friend that he was supportive of him and his choices, but he didn't particularly like that table. So he's like, you don't like the coffee table? No, it's kind of ugly, man. Whatever he said.
Being nice. I think he was saying
I was just being nice. So the next scene you see, Harry and Sally are talking outside their place. They go downstairs and they leave. And then the next thing you see is Jess is coming out the door with the coffee table saying, she's making me throw it out and I don't care.
Yeah. So things
So-
progress for Jess and Marie, and they're getting married. They're making plans to get married. And meanwhile, Sally calls up Harry crying, and she's crying because she just got a call from her ex-boyfriend Joe, who she kind of broke the relationship off because Joe didn't want to get married. She wanted a family and Joe didn't want that. But she's crying because Joe actually just met a new secretary. He's a lawyer. He met a new secretary, and he married this new secretary. And she's crying because she realizes it's not because Joe didn't want to get married, but because Joe didn't want to marry her. And so she asked
my
Harry to come
gosh.
over.
Yes, yes. And that's so heartbreaking because if somebody says something to you like, I just don't want to get married. Okay, that means everybody. But if I don't want to get married to you, then that's like a dagger in your heart. And you're like, why not? You know, that kind of thing. Harry comes over to console Sally this time. And what ends up happening?
Well, as they're consoling and as Harry's like, hugging her and like kind of caressing her hair, like, but just as like a consoling thing, she starts kissing him and they start kissing and, they get
Things
together.
happen and progress and they get together. And we don't see it, but the like the action, but we see the morning where, they've had this discussion a few times. How long do you stay with a girl after, you do it? And he's like looking straight up into the ceiling going, how long do I stay with her? Because this girl is different than other girls.
Mhm.
Because I've known her a long time. I really like her, but oh my gosh, what did we just do? If you've ever had a friend and then you sleep with that friend, then it's a really weird dynamic in the morning kind of thing. He's like, well, I got to go to the office. I got to go. But you know what? I really enjoyed this. Let's have dinner tonight. Okay. And then he leaves.
And they do get
And the-
together for dinner and they're both eating in silence and they're both kind of thinking they're going to say this was a mistake. And Harry would like her to say it first. She decides she would like to say it first.
But before that, so they both call up their best friend.
Oh, right. They do both call.
We have to talk about that scene. It's so funny. So they're talking simultaneously. Jess and Harry are talking, and oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then Marie and Sally are having the same conversation, and it's a split screen in the movie. And they're saying the same thing. Oh, I'm so glad you guys got together. It's been so long. You guys belong together. And oh, it didn't work out so well. Well, at least you tried it. It's okay. No big deal.
And
You
then
know,
then Sally and Harry both kind of hear the sound and they're like, who's that? And Marie says, oh, that's a morning talk show. And the same thing Jess says.
yeah,
Now,
he lies
interesting
about who
thing.
he's talking to.
An interesting thing is that took them 60 takes to do that. They actually
Oh my
did it in like
gosh.
the same studio and did the split screen and stuff. It took them 60 because they all had to hang up simultaneously. And so
Yeah.
I was just reading like trivia.
Well, inside beyond the
takes for
movie
that.
kind of thing. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could not have been an easy scene to film.
Call me later if you want.
I'll call you later, okay?
Okay, bye.
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 Bye. God.
I know.
So, but yeah, so they are sitting at that table and they're like, well, this was kind of a mistake. Who said that?
Sally said that first, which is what they both wanted. She wanted to say
At
it
the
first,
time.
and Harry wanted her to say it first.
Right, right. Why? Because then he didn't have to explain why he thought it was a mistake, because then a woman's feelings are hurt. So if the woman says it first, then the man is off the hook, basically. And so, oh, phew, I'm so glad you said that because, maybe it wasn't the right thing for us to do. So they go through this long period of ignoring each other. And then Harry decides, oh my gosh, maybe I did like her more than I let on. And I'm going to start calling her. And he calls her and he calls her and he calls her. And he leaves messages on her answering machine because back then that's what we had was answering machines, physical push the button answering machines. And she can listen, but she doesn't have to pick up. So he says, the fact that you're not answering leads me to believe that A, you're not home, B, you're home, but you don't want to talk to me, or C, you're home, desperately want to talk to me, but you're trapped under something heavy. If it's either A or C, please give me a call.
She was on her way out, but she actually does pick up and she kind of says
That's-
like, Harry, I can't be your consolation prize or something like that. He does pick up at that time. And the next time we see them together is at Jess and Marie's wedding.
They're both looking at each other like, man, I wish this was us in a way, but I'm glad it's not. What else happens there?
They do get into a little bit of an argument. So they basically talked about how you just want, like, sounds like you just wanted to leave as soon as it happened. And it doesn't work. Like we kind of ruined the friendship. And they then come back into the main room where Jess and Marie are about to give a toast.
Everybody, could I have your attention, please? I'd like to propose a toast to Harry and Sally. To Harry and Sally. If Marie or I had found either of them remotely attractive, we would not be here today.
And they're fighting, and they literally come in and they have to go, like, be quiet to listen to this accolade that they had brought these two people together because they didn't like each other. It was awesome. And then they had to stop fighting.
So then we you know, that scene ends and we don't see them again together. We see Christmas comes and she's like lugging a tree to her apartment, and then we're having New Year's and she's at a New Year's celebration, a celebration that she usually goes to with Harry, and she's there with Jess and Marie, and it's getting close to midnight. She wants to leave. We also see Harry at home watching Dick Van Dyke's, like, you know, countdown to New Year's Eve, very famous rockin' New Year's Eve. And you then see Harry somehow doing a 6-minute mile running to this party and trying to get there. And she's about to leave. She's like, I'm leaving. Jess and Marie said, you'll never get a taxi, stay. She's deciding to leave. And all of a sudden, there's Harry. He sees her and they confront each other.
And he gives all kinds of reasons. She's like, Harry, I don't want to be your consolation prize. I don't want to kiss you just because you feel bad. And we said we would kiss each other if New Year's came around again. I'm not that person. And then he says, no, it's not that. When you decide you love somebody, you want to start the rest of your life now, you know, and he gives her all these reasons, specific reasons why he loves her. Like all these crazy things that she does, he loves those things. And he says, I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night. And she goes, you see, that's just like you, Harry. You say things like that and you make it impossible for me to hate you. And I hate you, Harry. And then she kisses him.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, after that kiss, we come to we didn't mention that throughout this movie, there's a number of different little interviews between husband and wives and how they met. And they are the last interview. And they're talking about how they met. When they first met, they didn't like each other. Then they met, they still didn't like each other. Then they met, they became friends, and then they fell in love. And it was exactly, they got married after three months, but it was exactly 12 years and 3 months. Yes, because they were friends. they knew each other for 12 years, but then they dated. When they had that kiss on New Year's Eve, they ended up getting married 3 months later.
3 months later, we got married.
Yeah, it only took 3 months.
12 years and 3 months.
Right. Only 3 months. But
Only 3
man, they
months.
knew each other for a long time.
Yeah. And then they talked about how wonderful the wedding was and how they had the cake with the sauce on the side, because the sauce could get the cake soggy and not everybody likes the sauce on the cake.
Right. So the whole point of this, and this is my take on it, I don't know what you think, but you have to love the quirks of the person that you're with. You have to love the way they are, their uniqueness. You know, some things will drive you crazy and they will always drive you crazy. And then you have to deal with that too. But you have to appreciate the way they are. And I know when you're young, you think, oh, I don't want that quality in that person. But when you get older, those qualities seem very attractive, like stability and care and caution. Not when you're young, but when you're older, you love those things. So when they're together, they have these things that you get to love about the person that you're with because they're unique. And I think that's awesome.
And I think like when they first met, they couldn't have got together because they needed to kind of grow up themselves and experience life themselves. And so when they finally did get together after those 12 years, it was because, you know, they were much different people. They were much, you know, grown up and really kind of experienced and knew what they wanted in the world. First time when they met, it wasn't ever going to work at that point.
And I think when you're young and you marry somebody, you don't know them very well. You get to know them throughout your marriage. You get to grow and to love them and things like that. when you marry when you're older, because this is my second marriage, I know that I probably couldn't have been with my present husband when I was young and he was young, because he had to grow up and I had to go through my experience with my first marriage. So this marriage for me is much better because we know each other and we have settled in our expectations that everything isn't going to be perfect. It never will be, and that's okay. And I love the way he is and he loves the way I am to some degree. We still drive each other crazy, and I've gone through a lot with him. We've been married 7 years now, but I want to be like those guys where they are appreciating the people that they are with, the way they are, and not just on another person in the house.
Absolutely. I totally agree. When I first married my children's father, we were very young. And I think we weren't grown up enough, and we're very different people. And
Yeah.
it didn't work out, but someday I'm sure I will find that special person like Harry or whoever
Yeah.
it is. I don't know
Yeah.
where it's going to happen, but right now my focus is my children. But this was, again, I thank you so much. I'm not sure if it was me or you that suggested, but I love every Meg Ryan movie that I've seen. Love Billy
Right.
Crystal. I think we talked about, like, we're definitely going to do some more reviews together, but I think I've gotten some requests for some of our like videos on idioms and stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that was like, we talked about that being our next focus, as doing something like that.
Right.
And maybe we'll
Right.
start doing some more really fun movie reviews, because there's so many great movies and we seem to like similar things, that we'll do that in the future too.
Yes, definitely. So, and we're around the same age, so I think we grew up with the same kind of movies, and so that's why it's really fun to go, oh my gosh, I love that movie. Like, we will do Princess Bride in the future.
Yes, I
So
was
just-
actually thinking that, because Rob Reiner, director, very famous director of this movie, when I was doing some reading, I was like, he was the director of Princess Bride. So I was thinking that would be absolutely a great movie to do together.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. It's great to talk to you. As usual, we talked about the whole movie, so you don't have to watch it if you don't want to. But if you want to, then you're going to listen to all the points that we said, and you're going to understand the movie
And
better.
it will be a great companion to, like, listen to us, watch the movie, listen to us as a way to help you understand the movie. Just like last time, we did give
Yeah.
away the plot, like, but any case, many people, I imagine, have seen this movie around the world in their own languages, because it is, I think, of one of the more famous movies that we've talked
Right.
about.
So we can all say, I will have what she's having.
Exactly. In fact, in that restaurant, that particular table has a plaque to that whole, we didn't mention this very famous scene.
We didn't. We should have.
There's a scene where basically Sally says, well, how do you know that you always please the woman? Like, you don't know, like, all men think that they do, and most women have faked it. And he's like, I just know. And she then fakes it right there in the restaurant with everybody looking at her. And the very, very, one of the most famous lines in any movie is, after she does that and she stops and she just continues to eat her apple pie a la mode, a woman across the room says, I'll have what she's having.
And who is that in real life?
That was Rob Reiner's mother.
I'll have what she's having.
So yeah, that's a famous line. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So yep, it's true. All right. So humor, commonalities, all these things are what make a romance flourish. And having, just mature attitude towards things, and not a pie in the sky, wish everything was perfect attitude. I hope you guys have learned something from this, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thank you.